Good day, everybody, and welcome to #MarketEch Mondays, a show that features industry leaders who will share about their career journey to inspire the world of marketing. This is an initiative of Blogapalooza and MARKETECH APAC. Our guest for today is a storyteller who has led to the success of numerous campaigns and launches for brands like Loacker, Filippo Berio, iHop, and Ramen Iroha. He is currently the co-managing director for M2.0 Communications, a PR and digital communications agency. Welcome, everybody. Let us all help welcome Mr. Dabs Castillo. Hello, Dabs.
Hi, Ace. Nice
Hello,
to see
good
you.
day.
Thank you
Good
for
day.
having me.
Happy to meet you again. How have you been?
Been busy with the pandemic, looking to end the year strong. It's been quite a challenge for us, but I think we're going to make headway before the year ends.
Of course, and you've always been the strong person that I've known ever since. Actually, when the quarantine started here in the Philippines, no, I remember Dabs and I met because their firm right now. Do you say that M2 or M2.0?
M2?
M2, yeah, that's M2. They invited me to a talk, and I was very happy because that talk was hosted by Miss Gretchen Ho, and it really got a lot of traction online. So congratulations on that. And ever since, you've been producing a lot of these online webinars also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think one good thing about this pandemic as well is we get to network and see people, right, in a different light. The opportunities we would not have had if
Mhm.
we're not for the pandemic. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but there's definitely a silver lining to it.
Yes, yes. Happy that we have all found that silver lining. And even if we haven't really met in person, I'm very happy that I'm really getting to know you, Dabs. And today, our audiences, our viewers, our listeners are also going to know you better. And again, this episode is really intended for us to know more about the struggles, the journey, more importantly, of someone like Dabs Castillo. So, Dabs, ready to begin?
Fire away, Ace.
Yeah. Well, in MarketEch Mondays, we always ask our guests, in the many, many years that you've been in this industry, of course, you started somewhere. Yeah. What was your first job, Dabs? And how did it pave the way for your journey in this industry?
I was entering the workforce at a very interesting time as it was in the recession. So opportunities were really, they were not growing on trees, so to speak.
Mm.
And I was not the most studious student coming from school. So I had to take advantage of everything I could get. And one thing I knew I had was I had a passion for writing. The skill was not there yet at that point. No? So, but I looked for opportunities. I started off as an SEO writer for
Mm.
an automotive marketing company based in the States.
When was this, Dabs?
This was around, oh, you're going to reveal my age, Ace. It was around 2008, 2009,
All right.
right? At
Wasn't
the
so.
time, everybody was just happy to get jobs. At that age, you were happy to get to the workforce, right?
Yes.
Definitely different paths for different people. But
Mhm.
I was not as focused on my career, professional life initially. Right?
Mhm.
You could call me maybe a slacker for the most part, but I was interested in stringing good sentences together. That was really my passion. But
Mm-mm.
as I mentioned, extending a bit, um, the opportunities were very thin at the time, so I had to get two jobs. Right, I had a writing gig for a blogger from the States. I was doing
Mm.
blogging. At the same time, I had a day job here, so my days were really filled. But I had a lot of expendable income at the same time. But it was very tiring. It was very tiring. That's how
But
I got.
I think that's how it's like when you're young. You have all the energy. And I think that's also, that also happened to me before. No, I was young, I had a lot of energy. So yeah, let's work. Let's
Yeah.
spend our time making money. But you've always been into writing, and that's where you started. All the opportunities really came to you because of the writing jobs that you took on early in your career.
Yes, and it
Yeah.
was also a vested interest for me since although all of my grandfather is a novelist, my father is a
Mm-hmm.
writer composer, so it was something I would say it was in my blood, but
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't as good as them at that age, so I was just looking for opportunities to get me by. But
Mm-hmm.
one way or another, I found myself in this field, and I grew to love it more and more as I spent more years on it.
Right. That's I wanna know also. Well, you were a writer, and I know that you're still into writing right now. But back then, and you were saying that opportunities were not really that plenty. Was it difficult to land writing jobs before? I mean, compared to now.
I think there was the BPO industry in. I don't have the stats off my head. It was a bit more booming at that point. So
Mhm.
my opportunities weren't local. If you noticed, they were both foreign, right?
Yeah.
And there was always they get writers here for a more cost efficient price. And if you
Yeah.
had like one skill or another that they liked, it was easier to get it then. It was easy to get it, but holding on to it in terms of sustainability, I would say, is the bigger challenge since. Uh,
Mm.
Whenever, for instance, if something like this happened, COVID happened, it's usually
Mhm.
the outsourced writers or outsourced labor that gets hit first.
Mhm. Mm-mm. What were your what were your challenges early on in your career? I mean, at this point, the internet is really, really big already, and so we have a lot of need for writers. But back then, I mean, there was not a lot of opportunities like this. What were your challenges before?
You know, I'm a very introspective person, so I always look for purpose in what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at that young age, where you're a bit more idealistic, it was hard to marry what you were doing to what you wanted to do for the rest of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I would caution people entering the workforce that's probably one of the first boundaries that you will encounter entering the workforce. But you have to work your way up the ladder to find the opportunities that would be right for you. Right? And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it took a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Usually, in my personal journey, finding purpose came along with uh, getting married.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you tend to think deeply about these things. You tend to think more long term once you get those things right. So I
Yeah.
guess for me, it was organizing it at such a young age. At such a young age, because I chose to live on my own at a young age, and I needed to think long term while all my instincts were still thinking short term.
Well, but in hindsight, it all made sense.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
hindsight, everything makes sense. Now, I want to dig deeper into the little anecdote that you said that, oh, your grandfather's a novelist, your dad was a writer, and I'm sure you also got inspired by their work, by them as a person. And I also know that you consider them as mentors. But maybe apart from them, do you also have other mentors in this industry that probably propelled you faster to where you are right now?
I would, you know, yeah, I agree with you in terms of inspiration, in terms of what they do. But
Mhm.
I would be dishonest if I didn't say I was a bit intimidated by the things that they've achieved, right?
Mm-mm.
So it was hard for me to get into that, knowing the standards that were set in my own family.
Mm-mm.
In terms of mentors, I'm a very people oriented guy,
Yes,
so
you
I like
are.
making relationships, right? So I've had a lot of mentors in my life. I've taken from people who were my teammates in college. I've taken from my previous bosses, whether it's my first editor or our
Right.
current CEO right now at M2.
Mhm.
My goal has always been to take as much as I can from them and create
Mhm.
something of my own, right?
Yeah.
So it's always these leaders always have shown me, these mentors have shown me that there's a price to this position that they've taken. Oftentimes, a price not everybody is ready to pay, right? So you have to earn a lot of things.
Super agree. And I super agree also with what you said that we really take a bit of from every person that we meet, no? And me also, I consider a lot of people my mentors. Like I have mentors in a specific field. Like I have a mentor in, when it comes to say leadership, when it comes to strategy. There are many different people that I consider as mentors. But let's talk about the CEO that you mentioned. he or she is the CEO of current CEO of M2, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about what are the things that you admire about this person and how do you apply these qualities in your current job, which we'll talk about in a bit. Yeah. Mm-mm.
First of all, his storytelling approach is something
Mm.
very compelling to me. See, I'll dig back a little bit.
Mhm.
So I had two jobs when I started, and as I
Mhm.
mentioned, these jobs are not sustainable to stress. So there was layoffs, so I got removed.
Yeah, yeah,
So, most of these jobs I got a lot of home-based jobs. Lo and behold, we're back to it again. Um, and the problem with it, I enjoyed it. The pay was good, but I sort of missed the collaboration element to it. I was just
yeah.
reporting
Mhm.
to a laptop on a daily basis, which is kind
Mhm.
of, apart from being lonely, you don't learn much if you're not talking to people. So I wanted to do a job, to get a job, which got me working in front of people once again. So I
Mhm.
had an interview with our CEO, and the way just the way he painted the story of how to tell compelling, meaningful stories was it really inspired me. Otherwise I
Mhm.
would not be staying here if I didn't. His name is Doy Roque, by the way. One of
Boy,
the
boy,
things
Roque.
Doy D with a D.
Doy, Roque.
One of the things I admire about him up to this point is insatiable appetite for innovation. You know, there are times in our organization's history, M2O's history, we're doing pretty well, but he still had the foresight to change things, to add new things, to add new products, to insert data into how we do things. And in this industry, I think digital makes it certainly prone to disruption. So you
Yes.
need someone like that on the helm so that you know what's ahead.
Yeah. That's what I like about M2 also. It's always data driven. I'm subscribed to your newsletter and I always get all these news, but all of them have data. Okay, it's all data driven. And when they say that M2 is all about data driven storytelling, it's true, guys. It's true. Now, let us talk about M2 and your current job at M2. You're currently co-managing director for M2, yeah? How did you
Yes,
get into this? And did you also have to climb the corporate ladder, like you were saying, Rina?
I'll, I'll be honest, Ace. A lot of it was luck, actually. For my first few years in M2, I was just putting my head down doing the work. I started as a content writer, and
Mm. So
I
it's
guess
still writing pala.
yeah, I did something right. They promoted me to editor after 3 months. Then I started. I think there was a point in time where one of our senior account managers was not there for a pitch, so I had to step in to make a pitch. So I
Overlap.
got sort of tickled my appetite for
Mm-hmm.
campaigns. This is essentially storytelling for me. People
Mm-hmm.
say campaigns, I say stories. And once I got the hang of it, they gave me more and more opportunities in terms of
Mm-hmm.
pitching. And I became a strategist. But fast forward, I think my first experience in terms of leadership in this type of position, co-managing director, was when Doy had a trip abroad. So he was looking for someone to saddle the responsibilities on
Yes, yes.
while he was abroad. So I was the OIC, and we did very well in those 3 months. I think that was first uh,
Correct.
the first time I recognized the possibility that I could
Mhm.
do this
Mhm.
role.
Yeah. I believe in luck, but I also believe in destiny. One of the highest ranking officials in the Philippines released a statement that where she said that the presidency sometimes it's really destiny, and it's not just the presidency, but I think any leadership position in general, especially if it's like a high ranking position, executive position in a company. Luck is there, yeah, but destiny is there also, eh. Do you honestly think that maybe maybe this is your destiny? You
I'm
have
not
that feeling?
spiritual as you are in seeing this, Ace, but
Uh-huh.
I would say we're data driven, so let's quantify it. 20%,
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
20% luck, but 80% staying ready. Right? Oftentimes, um, what I encounter is people just want to be on top, making decisions quickly.
Mhm.
But that's a difficult position. Once you have to understand so many variables before you make decisions, especially when it's concerning people.
It is.
It's really experience. Some are born with it. I would say Ace is born with it. Right?
I
For such a
wish
young age,
I work
right?
hard every day.
So it's about taking chances, being ready. But there's an element of luck to it. I won't lie, Ace. There is an element of
But I
luck.
really have to agree with you. I really have to agree with the luck part. And not a lot of people would agree there, but I've experienced it and you've experienced it too. Luck is really a factor. But now that you're mentioning about leadership and how difficult it is to be a leader, I totally agree, by the way. It a lot of people make it seem like it's so easy, but leadership is difficult. Now, being in this leadership role of yours, it's co-managing director. Oh my gosh, that's a big role to big shoes to fill, diba? Tell us about your experience as a whole.
I would say it's I wasn't ready in the early stages, right?
Mm-hmm.
I liked the position being called co-managing director and having a hand in how things are run, especially the campaign side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But the monumental task of bringing people together, engaging people, these were skills that I did not have because I was really writing very
Yeah.
you're very narrowed into what you're doing,
Mm.
right? But it also, I mean, a part of it when you're building a pitch is you're brainstorming, so it's a matter of bringing out the ideas from everybody around the table,
Expertise.
right? So
Mhm.
that helps. But inspiring people on the day-to-day grind of things, especially during this pandemic, that was quite a challenge.
Mhm.
Um, there was a lot of growth in my part in terms of learning how to engage people right, learning how
Mhm.
to motivate them, learning how to find opportunities, to build, to align them with the broader goals of an organization, especially
Mhm.
in an agency setting where most of the people are really young, right?
Yes.
So
Uh-huh.
oftentimes the challenges for agencies are young people. They jump from 2 years transfer to another agency. So that's a challenge that we outlined in our own organization. How do we get our younger workforce to stay more, to commit more? And
Mhm.
really, this discussion to me goes beyond profit and more on
Yeah.
focus on people development.
Mm-mm. What's the most challenging experience that you've had as a leader in the corporate setting? I'd say.
This pandemic, bar none, bar
Really
none.
shocked us, no? Yeah.
I would list this as what is the toughest year of my professional life,
Mhm.
especially since we are an organization that prides itself in having a great culture. Part of the reason why people go to work in our agency is the culture that they see day to day. These small talks while they're having lunch,
Mhm.
cigarette breaks, brainstorm discussions, and
Mhm.
it's been robbed from us during the beginning of the pandemic, and it was harder it was harder to rally people together, and that's on below the business challenges that it presented,
Yeah.
right?
But what was the most fulfilling part? What's the most fulfilling part for you as a leader? It's difficult, taken na. But what's in it? Why do you still want to be there?
There's an element of narcissism here.
I like that
I
you said that.
I personally like bringing people together, right?
Mm,
When I see people, and I like the feeling of not letting them down, especially when there are broader goals.
mm,
I think the way I see my role is an anchor, right? In agency life, it's unstable. Clients operate in their own time, right?
that's
And you have deadlines and pitches on one hand, you got day-to-day
true.
servicing on the other, so
Mhm,
there's a lot of moving parts.
mhm.
So leaders have to be steady as the ship rolls, right? If it's like that, you got to stay steady in the middle, not too happy, not too sad, uh,
Hmm.
being aware, having a realistic understanding
Hmm.
of what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I always factor in three things in terms of being a effective leader.
Mhm.
Finding time, which is hard enough. I'm sure, Ace, you can relate to that. Finding time to manage so many things,
Mhm.
engaging people, so time, people, and harnessing potential as well.
Mm-mm. And a lot of people forget this, no? But leaders are humans also. They also
Yeah.
have their personal struggles. They also have their, things that, make them feel down and things that really disrupt their daily equilibrium, I would say. When you talk about these challenges and you look back in the career that you have so far, are there any specific failures, memorable failures that you can think of right now and maybe you're comfortable to share? And what are the things that you have learned from these things?
With you, Ace, I'm comfortable to share.
That's good to hear. Huh?
So I take a lot of pride in my work, especially the
Mhm.
creative side of it. But that hurts me as well. When we lose pitches, that affects me to an nth degree. I take it personally. I'm very competitive. I used to be a basketball player. I think that's where it stems from. And in basketball, you're either winning or you're losing. Oftentimes, when I was younger, we used to win a lot, but in the
Mhm.
corporate world, it's like 50-50. When you lose one, so that
Yeah,
was a big adjustment for me.
yeah.
Um, One of the more notable failures, I would say, lesson. Let's just
Mm.
take it as lesson for me. We had
Mm.
a big pitch for a major fast food chain here, and we worked on it for, I would say, 3 months, and everything
Oh my
was super
gosh.
smooth. We had a good theme, the right messages, good executions, albeit a bit more experimentative in terms of executions, but the deck was so nice. But it was one of my earlier pitches, and when the presentation came, I couldn't string 6 words together. So
You were
I
the one presenting.
yeah, yeah, I
You were
was,
the one presenting. Oh yeah, okay. Uh-huh.
but I needless to say, I really think I didn't deliver the pitch. I didn't deliver the presentation value that was needed to push that thing forward. But everything else going into it, I thought we had it. But
Mm.
that carried me. I carried that burden for a long time. But what struck me the most was how people were still receptive of my inputs even after that, because I take it personally, and they treated me like I didn't make a mistake. And I
Mm.
think one of the insights I learned there is it's important to build a culture where people are not afraid to make mistakes, because that's where
Yeah,
you get the best.
yeah. I super agree there. Building a culture where people are not afraid to make mistakes. That's really important, especially in our current situation, And I mean, it's difficult to stay on the safe side. We always have to innovate, try new things, experiment. As long as, of course, you always take calculated risks. When we talk about the risks, Dabs, I know that you've taken a lot of risks in your career, and some of these risks have resulted to success. Now, if we talk about success, what are the most remarkable, successful moments of pride and glory during your career so far?
Um, in terms of organizationally, I think the way we dealt with this pandemic right now, barring, I love campaigns, especially when they go beyond products and more on stories. We work with different brands. We work with energy savings advocacies. We work with
Mhm,
doctors. We work with
mhm,
you. So these are when it goes beyond the products and something more. That's something I'm always proud of. But for
mhm,
this year, as I mentioned, this is a very different time. I think it's a defining time for a lot of us.
mhm.
Um, and the way we bounced back from initially, what month did we go into quarantine?
I already forgot.
It's
March?
uh,
Probably.
So there was a lot of adjustments, and I was only still acclimatizing to this new role. But earlier on, we made a commitment to focusing on people and engaging them. So
Mhm,
I think we're gonna end the year pretty solidly, which I'm very proud of. I'm very very proud of. It came with a price. It's a bit tiring, but before when this lockdown started, I told my team that we might find something better at the other side of it. And I
mhm,
think, right, if we put in the work, set aside the distractions of this thing, it's really
mhm.
hard working from home. I think we might find something, a better version of ourselves, which I hope for everyone who is encountering similar challenges as ours. Right,
Mhm.
let these things bring us together instead of tearing us apart.
Mm, 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 mm. I think that's really true. Even for us, also in our own company, at the onset, it was really challenging. It was very difficult. It was almost as if, it was, we were
It's like
hopeless.
the world stopped.
Yeah, right?
It's like
Everybody
the
just
world
didn't know what
stopped.
to do. But, we are both leaders in our respective companies, and we had to steer the ship to better seas, I'd say. But well, happy to know that everything has been like we all saw the light at the end of that very dark tunnel, and we're all coming out in this year. Well, a little scathed, yes. I'm not
Not
totally
free
saying that
from
we're
scars.
unscathed,
Yes,
right?
not free from scars.
Mm-hmm.
At least to remind us that the past is real. And again, we were speaking of silver linings. This is a great time to start thinking of what happens next, right? What
Mm-mm.
happens next? And we're seeing a lot of extraordinary developments around the world. And communications is playing a big role in it. We're seeing it play a bigger role in elections, social outcomes. There's definitely a future there. And I think the fact that we don't know what it is quite exciting.
It's
But yeah,
exciting. Yes, totally
correct.
agree.
Yeah,
Mhm. Yeah. It takes a special, an extraordinary level of courage and strength to really think about the silver lining, to really think positive in a situation like this. Is there any specific, personal mantra or a career slogan at least that you have? And if you do, how do you apply this to your current job or to your current career as a leader in this industry?
I've always no personal mantra for me. I've always subscribed to the thinking of grace under pressure. I think that's something I learned from my family, just keeping level headed. But it was put to the test during this pandemic.
Mhm.
But just keeping level headed, being objective about the situation, knowing what needs to be done.
Mhm.
You mentioned being the anchor to things. I think leaders, all the more during this time, are asked to do that more so now more than ever,
Mhm.
right? And I think in terms of inspiration, I always look back to my family in terms of what you're doing it for. But on the second hand, if you build relationships with the people you're working with, I think that serves more than enough inspiration to get things right, right? To
Mhm.
get things right or to do it in the most positive way possible.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Totally agree. Now let's talk about my favorite topic, influencer marketing. Let's talk about influencers. And I know you're in a PR communications agency, so you've definitely worked with influencers. Now I want to know your opinion. Just your opinion, right? Not the opinion of M2, but your opinion. What is your opinion on influencers in this time?
Um, I think with what the pandemic has done, authenticity is more important now compared to before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you can see how social media is evolving. It's becoming a very tribal place, right? Oftentimes, how these
Tribal.
yeah,
Tribal.
how the algorithms work is they feed you content that you're interested in. So I mean, if it's about products, it's another thing. But if it's
Yeah.
about ideology, it's wholly different. You see that in the US right now.
Yeah.
So influencers have a big role to play in that space. But
Mhm.
my hope is their role becomes bringing everybody together instead of separating them further.
Yeah.
Right. But again, I think big challenges, authenticity, how communities evolve. We're seeing a lot more chat groups, more local groups, Viber groups
Mhm.
springing up. These are new developments as well. But I
Yes.
think the onus for you know this more than I do, probably Ace. The onus for influencers are, I think, going back to the fundamentals of content creation, earning the trust of the consumers that are watching you, giving
Mhm.
them helpful content, and being empathetic to the situation of many Filipinos right now, which is, in all honesty, is that they're not in a good place, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Recently we were talking earlier before the show started of the storm. There's a pandemic. It's been a stressful year.
Mhm. It is. Yeah. But in M2 maybe you could talk about your experience working with influencers. How was your experience working with the influencers? What are the things that you find are good with the way that they work? What are the things that you think are a little challenging with their work ethic?
For the agency side, I'm sure you can attest to this as well.
Mm,
The influencers themselves, they are great content creators and they have a knack for what works online and not. So that makes our jobs a lot easier. I think
mm,
the difficult part in that equation for me is managing the expectations of clients. Oftentimes,
mm,
you're looking at whether you're going for conversion or awareness.
uh-huh.
So these things have to be managed. But in terms of working with influencers, from most of the influencers I've worked with, they're very professional and they
Uh,
have good content. They dedicate the time. Their,
mm,
their, their calendars are often filled, but they dedicate ample enough time to develop great content that I think is representative of the brand. Where the
mm,
disconnect I see is oftentimes the clients still need a little bit more education in terms of how to use
understanding.
properly
Mm-hmm.
and what to expect.
Mm-mm. How do you manage that on the agency side? Of course, there are things that the client, the brands really want. Their logo is so big it covers the entire frame. But the influencers, they want it to be more subtle. They want it to be soft sell. How do you manage that on the agency side?
I really tend to side with the influencers in terms of production there. Uh,
Mm-mm.
Sometimes the clients, at the end of the day, they will weigh in and do what they want to do. But our job as strategic advisors is to say that's not really how people consume content, right?
Mm-mm.
My thinking is the helpful track, the less product centric track is always there. That maybe means shows some of my bias in terms of influencers being really, for me, they're awareness drivers. They're big awareness drivers. Maybe
Mm-mm.
when you're looking for conversion, you look for different arrangements. Affiliate marketing would be a
Oh
good
yeah,
inspiration right there. So that
yeah,
the deliverables and KPIs are much clearer, right? But
yeah,
in terms of my preference, I'm a content guy. Ace. I will always side with the content creators in terms of quality.
yeah. Well, that's true. That's also a tough job for us, because sometimes, you get the brand, yeah, but you also get the content creator, eh. You get their goal and you understand why both of them are not really meeting in a good place, but it's always whenever we would have agency guests in this show, we'd always ask them, how do you marry that? Because they have different goals, and it's your job as the agency to make sure that both of them are comfortable, that both of them feel good about working with each other. And it's challenging, no? Not a lot of people really understand that. It's so challenging, even the brand. Now, speaking of that, I wanted to also ask you if there is a message that you could tell the brands when it comes to influencer marketing, what would be this message to brands?
I think you see it as a relationship of collaboration and not a job order that you have to do. I think I mean that way you balance that thing that you want
That's
to
so
do. So you're more the synergies between them are more pronounced than not. I think it becomes uh, bad content when you tend to lean on one side or the other,
yeah,
right? So approach it in a collaboration standpoint. Responsibility of an agency liaising is to manage the expectation of client in terms of how to approach these things. And
hmm,
you encounter challenges when you're dealing with brands who've dealt with influencers before, so they have like a predetermined expectation of what's gonna happen.
hmm, hmm,
Um, but onus is for agencies: manage expectations, collaboration, build
hmm,
relationship between them. It's
yeah,
not transactional. When it becomes transactional, you look at it as a job. Where's the fun in that? When
yeah,
it's not compelling.
yeah. I like what you said about it's a collaboration, not a job order. I like that very much. Now, for influencers naman, Dabs, what would be your message in general for influencers who are in this industry, looking into making it big in this industry? What would be your key takeaway for them?
I think same as before. We mentioned it in passing. I mean, use your voice to bring people together. I know it sounds a bit sappy, but I personally, I have a 3-year old kid. making his way. I don't know. I'm not gonna understand the world he's gonna grow up in. But that scares me. The way voices are being pitted against each other on social media, on Facebook. I be that person that brings people together. Continue building good content for your community. That seems to be the future. No, good content creation. That seems to be the future. But again, I would emphasize, especially in a world where fake news is taking a grasp of so many things and influencing so many things that they shouldn't be influencing. Let's be forces for good.
Let's be forces for good. Totally agree. Times 1,000. Let's be forces for good. Use our influence for good. And for us in Blogapalooza, we always say hashtag elevate influence. Now that we're in the advice part of the show, I also want to know, Dabs. A lot of the listeners that we have probably right now are young, new souls trying out their career in this field of marketing. What would be your advice? Now that you were saying, okay, luck played a big role, but this would be your advice.
It's still a journey for me. I'm learning a lot of things. It's a never-ending thing. I'm sure you would say the same, Ace. I
Yeah.
tell them to embrace change, but hang on to the fundamentals. For me, fundamentals in this case are good stories, fact-based, positive stories, but
Mm-hmm.
embrace change. If you look at the world 10 years ago, there was no social media. I came in at a time where it was the newspaper was the end all of be all of public relations, but it's such a bigger space right now. Those are new opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, people find themselves clinging to the past. That's not a good thing. But some of the things, I think it's grounded on good storytelling. This industry will always be grounded on good storytelling, grounded on great understanding of people. I
Mm-hmm.
think that those are the two things that will never change. Data's
Mm-hmm.
coming in. Data is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, I mean, I mentioned 10 years ago. 10 years ago, it was enough to have a creative director present
Mm-hmm.
and win the show in the boardroom. Now
Uh-huh.
everything's data driven, and you see the impact of it in terms of social outcomes, not just
Right.
products, right? So follow the data. I think that's the trend now. But
Mm-hmm.
embrace changes. That means being a student of all these new things coming out of social media, whether it's TikTok, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
Reddit, all other platforms, because things are always gonna change.
Yeah, super agree. Data. And like what you said, embrace the changes, but hang on to fundamentals. Storytelling is always going to be there. Human to human communication is always going to be there, regardless of medium, regardless of the things that you use. It's always going to be there. Storytelling at its core. Now, Dabs, let's get a little personal. And this would be my last question to you. If you wish for people, what are the three things that you would wish for people to remember you by?
That's very narcissistic, Ace. I would um, uh, I think empathy would be there. I'm still working on being remembered there, but I'd like to be remembered as a good father and as a effective leader. Three things, sorry. Good father, effective leader, good husband na lang. Yung pangatlo. Everything I'm setting up right now in my life, everything I'm planning for my son. In terms of where they see me in the past, in truth, I answered this question because you asked it to me and you're my good friend, but I don't really think about it. No, I don't really think about it. I think for the people who know me, whatever they say about me would be enough for me. Right?
Mhm.
Pag iniisip ko, what's important to me just
Yeah,
right now is being a good dad.
yeah.
That's what's super important.
I like that question very much because it gets people off guard. It catches
Yeah.
them off guard and forces them to think of things that they would think about first. And those are the answers that I like. Like what would you want to be remembered by? And usually the three things would be the best things. And I like what you said. You want people to remember you as a good husband, a good father, and a good leader. And of course, Dabs, because you're a guest in Market Tech Mondays, we will always remember you as one of our best guests here in this show. Thank you very much, Dabs, for lending us your time and, of course, sharing your skills with us. Thank you for being generous with your journey. And thank you for imparting a thing or two to our listeners and viewers today. Paalam, Dabs, and hopefully we could catch more of you in the next episodes. Maybe interact. Maybe you could interact with you also. And oh, by the way, how could people follow M2? And how could they find more about you?
You can find us on Facebook. You can Google us too. We're pretty good on the SEO as well. Please do follow our webinar platform on 3now.com. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook too.
Very nice. On3now.com and M2 Communications in social media. Again, thank you very much, Dabs. And see you again. Hopefully, we could hashtag elevate influence together. Bye-bye.
Anyways.